This recording is a continuation of the talk on responsible stewardship, and it deals with responses to the sexual abuse crisis in the Catholic Church. What is important within the Catholic Church is the commissioning of bodies like grievance cells, committees that investigate such issues, which need to be set up and strengthened in a manner that is transparent. A possibility could be the setting up of bodies comprising laity as well as clergy and religious, experts who can examine evidence professionally. This calls for increased lay participation in the church, and perhaps the increased participation of the laity will spur a healthy conversation about the relationship between politics within the church and the gospel. A caution here is that outside groups could attempt to define the terms of this participation. Therefore, promoting a language more authentic to the church, one of sin, reparation, mercy, and holiness, would not only allow the church to transcend such debates, but would also allow it to enter more fully into its own mission. It must be said that most clergy and religious are not men in crises. Most of them are well integrated, make a lot of sacrifices, and give up a lot in the service of the church. Secondly, there are several church documents that contain guidelines for formation and ongoing formation. Thirdly, the church's contribution to various aspects of nation and community building, as well as in the lives of the faithful, needs also to be emphasized, like health, education, and the social work spheres being just three of the many aspects of nation and community building that the church is involved in. There are a couple of points in the formation of clergy and religious where sexual abuse is concerned, which could be looked at critically and from the vantage point of responses. They are early and ongoing training in managerial skills, addressing crises at points of transition that include psychological and spiritual crises, and careerism. There should be an emphasis on formation for mission that is other-oriented. Therefore, some guidelines, and the guidelines should incorporate the following: identifying the presence of fundamental markers of human maturity, highlighting strengths and internal resources available for formation work and future pastoral ministry, identifying vulnerabilities that need to be addressed in formation and in ongoing formation, right through priesthood, confronting the formee with reliable information about himself or herself that he may be tempted to resist, noting factors that will influence how formation staff can most effectively work with the formee, and offering the support the formee needs or the priest needs, and helping the priest or those in formation integrate the various pillars or dimensions of formation as described in Pastoris Dabo Vobis and Ratio Fundamentalis Institutionis Sacerdotalis. Prevention policies in the church should consider situational and social factors that could influence future harmful behavior, as new opportunities would arise over time and offenders could adapt and change their modus operandi. Therefore, strategy should incorporate a general framework that can be adapted to new situations using new techniques. Some measures could be to increase the effort it takes for priests to commit acts of abuse by implementing mandatory safe environment training to raise awareness among priests and enforcing the zero tolerance policy for abusers, which would make the risk greater if one is recognized as an abuser. A periodic evaluation of the performance of priests so that questionable behavior would be more likely to be detected and controlled should be instituted. Priests should acknowledge the importance of structures of accountability and transparency, such as safe environment and audit programs. These should be implemented and maintained in a timely way. Priests should find alternate outlets for close and age-appropriate bonds, thus lessening the need for them to develop inappropriate social bonds. They should participate in priest groups, which would decrease the likelihood of isolation and stress. Stress reduction seminars could help prevent provocations, especially after transitions. Excuses should be reduced through education about what types of behavior are and are not appropriate with minors or with anyone else. The ability to use techniques of neutralization should be removed, whereby excuses to justify inappropriate behavior are given. Socialization to the life of the priest, especially with a focus on issues of intimacy and isolation, are important. These might better equip formees to adjust to the loneliness and realities of the life of celibate chastity. Therefore, change must come from the leaders, and the changes should be strongly implemented. Changes can be achieved through transparency in reporting and dealing with abuse. It should be ensured that transparency and accountability structures become routine and part of the ordinary practices and culture of the church. This may involve the creation of review boards in parishes and dioceses. Thus, with continued transparency and accountability, and many other mechanisms which come into place, changes can become institutionalized. The church can use the speed of politics to its advantage, as in the case of prelates who have cooperated with investigations on sexual abuse. Members of the church, the faithful, should be assured that the church is committed to responding to all incidents of sexual abuse. Church members should be updated about steps taken to achieve changes through a safe environment and audit programs, and through gaining a better grasp of the problem by commissioning studies about the sexual abuse problem. They should be informed about how the church has acted. This would help in greater openness. Transparency requires that the whole church community be engaged at all levels, including laity and clergy, to maintain vigilance in the prevention of abuse. I would like to end this series of talks on sexual abuse in the Catholic Church, sexual abuse with regard to clergy and religious and formative structures, based on an article by John Carr in America magazine titled 8 Lessons to Help Us Move Forward from the Sex Abuse Crisis. He gives some tips. As much as the 8 lessons are applicable to the Catholic world at large, they're also applicable to the Indian Church. I have taken just 3 points from the 8 points which he has given so that they fit into the Indian context. The first point is that attention needs to be focused on the needs of the vulnerable and their families, not the protection of the institution or the care of perpetrators. The second point is there must be independent, credible, and effective ways of reporting, and perpetrators should be investigated and held accountable for their behaviors, abuse of power, actions, and non-actions about sexual abuse. And the third point is that we should also be aware of those who use the suffering of survivors to settle scores, or to advance their own agendas. The crisis in the church might be viewed as a call to today's priests to live their vocations with positive integrity. This message needs to be reinforced by brother priests, the seminary, and the bishops and major superiors. An internalized sense of celibacy is necessary because celibacy is a yes to the humanity of the priests and a yes to the powerful presence of God in their lives. It is a positive, passionate life of relating and loving. There are real problems, but there also are miracles being carried out by priests and religious of the Catholic Church.